If you've read anything that I've written recently or come to hear me speak at the PPW conference, you'll know that basically what I like to talk about is trying to make real estate portals better for their users, which is why I'm absolutely delighted that we are sponsored by PropTech. They're a company absolutely at the forefront of helping real estate portals do things like virtual staging, interior design, listing optimization, renovation estimates, neighborhood analytics, and in listing furniture shopping. That last one's actually really cool. You should check it out. If that sounds good, if you want to be one of the portals that I say nice things about, head to proptex with 2x's.com or hit the guys up on LinkedIn and say that we sent you. Hello and welcome to the PPW Pod, bringing you news, views, and interviews from the world of real estate marketplaces and PropTech. I'm joined for today's episode by Harvey Hancock in Madrid. How are you?
Very good, thank you, Ed. Great to be back.
Yeah, and Simon Baker from A Mysterious Forest. Where are you, Simon, and how are you?
I'm in Johannesburg today. I'm down here for the private property. It has a conference for real estate agents. There's about 2,000 of them. And Theo Mseka, who's the CEO, asked me to come down and say, would you mind presenting them about AI and its potential impact on the real estate industry? So tomorrow I'm fronting up in front of 2,000 or so real estate agents from around South Africa to talk about the future of real estate agency from an AI perspective. And I am going to remind them that they do still have a job at the end of the day.
Okay, well, a man who can't resist a conference, which leads us very nicely onto today's topic. We were kind of chatting on the WhatsApp group earlier about what we were going to talk about this week, and we decided against talking about Zillow and the never-ending stream of lawsuits that seem to be getting thrown at it. Instead, we are going to do a preview of the PropTech and Portal Watch conference coming up here in Madrid from the 15th to the 17th. Although I say 15th to the 17th, I'm missing a day off that, am I not, Simon? There's something else going on beforehand.
Sure. If you're a startup or growing a business and want to know how to accelerate, how to become a large business through everything from raising money, mergers, acquisitions, running a great team in operations, etc., we run a startup day on the Tuesday. This is a full day workshop. Turn up, we sit there and we literally walk through everything from how do I really what's a good idea versus an idea, right through to how do I get out of all of this and put money in my bank account at the end of the day. So I'm encouraging everyone who is in Madrid and wants to come and hear from about four of us who have all been either CEOs, investors, from everything from small businesses through to large businesses. You'll get a lot of real world experience, real hands-on, and it's interactive. It's an interactive full day workshop, followed by, of course, drinks. Everyone gets a chance to mingle and share experiences and hear from each other.
One thing worth mentioning about Startup Day, just from my perspective, is that I really like the fact that the founders end up talking to each other. And as much as it's great to have the likes of Simon, Mike Plichter, who's going to talk about investment and go to market and stuff like that, saying, I have a problem with my first hire, for example, or I need to fire someone, and hearing the people who are attending actually answering each other's problems, it's a really good way of building some confidence, getting some validation for the ideas that you're doing right, and maybe hearing some warnings about the ideas that you might be doing wrong. Really worth it for those smaller growing businesses and anyone who feels like they've got a problem that they'd really like to ask a couple of people some questions about. So really looking forward to Startup Day, Ed.
Yeah. So as I said, we decided not to talk about Zillow and their lawsuits. We decided to do a preview episode of PropTech and Portal Watch. Why are we so hyped about it? Like for us, for the three of us, for the last, I don't know how many weeks, it doesn't matter what kind of big news story comes in. It's kind of secondary to the main job, which is this conference, right? Why are we so hyped up about what's going on this year? I mean, Simon, why don't you start off with like how many people we currently have? Because that's something that every morning we start talking about, right?
Yeah, look, this is, for me, it's fantastic. I shared, I think yesterday, with everyone, all the attendee stats going back to 2009. So we've been doing this 16 years, about nearly 40 conferences. Maybe it is 40. I've lost track, to be honest. And this will be our largest. And what is more important is not only just bums on seats, it's actually the quality of the people through the door. I did a sort the other day on just the title CEO, and out of the at least 400, there's close to 100 of them are just CEOs. Now, that's a pretty good group to have together to talk about, issues facing, their businesses. Clearly, AI is going to be the hot topic that is covered off by a lot of the speakers. And it's very exciting. And I also sort of thought, well, let's go market by market. So I've got, if we just literally walk around the world, I've got REA and Domain, I've got realestate.co.nz from New Zealand, I've got number 1, the number 2, and number 3 coming out of the United Kingdom with Rightmove, Zoopla, and On the Market. Got Scout24, Idealista, C'est Léger, Le Bon Coin. I've lost track. Property Finder out of Dubai, Dubizzle Group. We've got CoStar, Adevinta, Aviv Group. I mean, we are talking about the big movers and shakers in the industry. And of course, we've also got funds turning up. So Premier is there, Luxor Capital, just to name a couple off the top of my head. It is absolutely the best turnout we've had at the conference. I can say that without, even if no one else signs up, okay, we have got the best turn up. So that's what I'm very much looking forward to, because my judge is the way I judge these things is if after 40 I'm still excited, then we must be doing something right, and I'm actually very much looking forward to the conference in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we said we didn't want this to just be a pure sales exercise, but I will say this: if you haven't got a ticket yet, by the time this comes out, the tickets may well have sold out. So go and get them, basically.
Yep.
Okay, we wanted to preview a bit about who the speakers are, why we're excited about them. Harvey, why don't you give us? I'm going to imagine that this is a music festival for a minute. Who's headlining, and who's good? Who's got a good reputation for being good live?
I mean, it's got to be the opening act, right? Malcolm Myers has been giving us, years and years and years worth of insights from marketplaces across the world. There's a reason he always opens the show. It's because it's basically a crash course in what marketplaces look like around the world. A couple of confusing slides. There's always a couple of slides that he always says, bear with me on this one. But you always understand them by the end. He's a great presenter. He's a close friend of the conference, and I'm particularly looking forward to him. The other one that I'm looking forward to off the top of my head is a debutant. I'm going to go with Mike Del Pret as a first-time speaker at the conference, coming out of the US. Fantastic analyst. I can't wait to hear what he has for us. I don't know exactly what it is he's going to talk about, but I can safely assume it's probably going to be something good. Those are the two names off the top of my head.
Go on, Simon.
I'm going to jump in a bit here. I think Malcolm sort of nailed it with his title. I was going to read it here. Property Portals: The End of an Era or a New Golden Age. Now, I thought that's a pretty cool title, right? It's controversial, but what it's really talking about is how does AI impact not only the portals themselves, but the consumers, the buyers, the sellers, and so on. And I think getting his perspective will absolutely kick off the conference in the right way. I think Mike Del Pret's going to be talking about a lot about what's happening in the US market, power moves shaping the US real estate market. And he is super ingrained into what is happening there. And we could probably ask him about Zillow and its lawsuits, to be honest, because they seem to be turning up every single week we have this news podcast. I think there are a number of other really good speakers that we've got to highlight here. We've got Joseph Kaliti, who's the CEO of United Platforms, coming out of Hungary. They run in Gatland and so on. And he's going to talk about more day-to-day operational, how do we incorporate AI into our day-to-day lives? One thing is to talk theoretically about the future and, is this the beginning of the end and so on, but we all have to wake up tomorrow and actually put our trousers on one leg at a time and go to the office. And how do we actually use AI? So we've got Joseph. We've also got Christian Halvorsen, who's the CEO of Vend out of Scandinavia, talking. He's sharing his experiences and how they've grown a business in Scandinavia to be the clear sort of market leader. We've also got Haider Ali Khan coming out of Dubizzle Group out of the UAE, and he's talking about AI-fueled product development. And the thing I've liked about the Dubizzle Group over the last, now they've been speaking at the conference, my God, maybe 15 years off and on, is that they're always innovative in how they think about product development. And Haider and Imran, who's also coming, the CEO, they are super in touch with what the user wants, and they're very, very good technologists at rolling out. That's how they've created a multi-billion-dollar business. So they absolutely know what they're doing in that part of the world. We've got some other super interesting speakers that I'm actually looking forward to hearing from. One's actually a little controversial, which I thought was pretty good. I was chatting yesterday with the Proper Bird guys, and they've said, well, we could talk about how we do analytics and so on. They say, no, we want to talk about how we think Domain can take on REA in Australia, and they're going to use data and analytics for that. So we were, they wanted to pick my brain on some of the history there, but I thought, how innovative is that? So let's actually use what we do as a service, but apply it to a real everyday problem, because CoStar's just spent $2 billion buying a business. They want to actually get the most out of it. So I'm looking forward to them talking about what they're doing there. I think, Ed, you should actually just tell us a bit about what you're going to do, because you're actually going to do something interesting. You got a session
Absolutely.
and then a follow-on panel.
Yeah. So as we record this yesterday, the Portal Standards Report 2025 went out to people. I've just been looking at the analytics. People are reading it. To summarize it, because it is 48 pages, it just basically says real estate portals are lacking in innovation when it comes to search, right? Now, I can come to that conclusion because I've just looked at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these websites over the last 5 years, right? And I've put it on a graph. What I don't know, the context that I don't have, comes from people who actually have worked in these real estate portals and have worked with these real estate portals. So when I say something blunt like, why doesn't this portal have a map? Or why doesn't this portal have, I don't know, this filter or that filter? It's just from the perspective of essentially a user, right? So I'm actually going to have two product experts on stage with me after my presentation and we're not going to say discuss, we're going to say debate some of the topics around this, because I want to be proved wrong to a certain extent.
I'm looking forward to
actually,
that.
Simon, I wanted to ask you. So I have just uploaded the agenda into our conference at Hoover, which shortly will be sent out to all people registered, where you can do the Q&A. By the way, we make sure that everybody who gets on stage gets questions from the audience at the end, because we need to hold them to account a little bit. You'll see the agenda. You can do your networking all on that. I've just uploaded the agenda, and I'm looking at the agenda and thinking, how would I, in Simon's position, make this agenda relevant for everybody? How would I structure it? How would I go about getting these different people to speak? Because it's not just about having market leaders on stage, because with the best will in the world, if you had everyone as a market leader, you wouldn't learn that much, because they're quite guarded. You need some consultants, you need some younger, companies, you need some suppliers. How do you think about it? How do you go about it? Because it seems like a little bit of a thankless task, actually.
Oh, the putting the agenda together is a perpetual joy and headache all rolled up into one. The way I always think about it is, I want to start off with sort of the theory. So let's we hear from the Malcolm, we hear from Mike Del Preb, we're going to hear from Moister and Goodwin from OC&C Consultants. They're going to talk about how they're seeing the world, because they're out there talking to a whole bunch of companies, and they're going to share their views and their insights. I then like to go to the next level down and go, okay, let's talk to market leaders, which is why we have like Christian from Vend. We have Zoopla, Rich Hayes from Zoopla coming along. We want these guys to talk about how the big boys, the big companies out there are thinking about the markets, whether from a leadership position or an attacker position. But then I like to get up on stage and those who are new, right, and how they're approaching thinking totally differently. So I've got Malcolm McCallion talking, who he's spoken before, but he's just working with agents, and he's just finished his tour around the United Kingdom, where he's basically saying, at the end, I think it was I'm going to paraphrase and get it wrong. It's sort of like the anti-right move tour, but he's very much positioning himself as the agent's friends and how they can roll out, how they can use AI to maximize the efficiency and effectiveness of their businesses. Now, it's good to hear how other people are thinking about these problems. And we've got Colby Short, who's from Get Agent in the United Kingdom. They're all doing innovative things, but at a small level. But all the businesses who are the market leaders have to start somewhere in the process. And these guys are out there building businesses, day to day, talking to customers, understanding where the true pain is in these markets, and then bringing out solutions around that. And then we end up at the very, very, very early stages when we have Pitch Club, where we have sort of half a dozen or so companies. They get to pitch their business. They get to say, hey, I'm new. I am trying to raise some money, but this is what I'm going to do to try to fundamentally become the next Right Move or Dubizzle Group or whomever in the world. Okay. And I think that is where it gets super interesting. So we take all these together, and then you got to try to put them into fundamentally 8 session blocks where we have common themes around it. And I think we're there. I've got a few slots left on the agenda, but I've got some feelers out there to people who I think are going to talk, and they've got super interesting things to say. That's the other thing that's super important. I like to have people who have got great things to say, are super engaging when they're up there, can be slightly controversial. And I think that's where we've got where we get really good uptake. One I'm actually looking forward to hearing again from is Mike Vanderheiden. He's an absolute expert in the world of SEO, but his take on it now is, well, what does SEO really mean in the world of agentic search? How do you get your whole company prepared for the absolute torrent of searches being done by the Perplexities and ChatGPTs of the world? And I think that's important, right? That we can't just stand still and look back and say, well, I'm optimized for SEO. Great. That's 15 years of people been doing that. It's like, well, what's next? And how do I apply that tomorrow to my business? So that sort of gives you a bit of an idea of just some of the really interesting topics that we're having presented at the conference, from everyone from big market leaders that are worth billions of dollars through to startups that are trying to raise $500,000 just to get off the ground.
Could I add a little segue in there, Ed, which is you just talked about Mike VDH there, Simon. There's also going to be some workshops on the morning of the start of the conference, and I think he's going to be doing one of them. So as my understanding works, the conference officially starts on Wednesday afternoon. We have the startup day on the Tuesday. The conference starts at around midday on Wednesday, but we've actually got some workshops in the morning with very limited numbers. We're talking 30 to 40 people in the room. And I think we're going to have our platinum sponsors, Iovox. I think we're going to have our podcast sponsors, PropTech. And I think we're also going to have Mike, who's also going to be doing a workshop potentially.
That's right.
Yeah.
By the way, those workshops, as you said, they will probably be oversubscribed. They're oversubscribed every year. We have to turn people away every year because they haven't filled in the form to say they want to attend. If you're listening to this and you think,
by the way, it's free. It's free.
Completely free.
We don't charge extra.
If you're listening to this thinking I'd like to go to one of those workshops or all of those workshops, there is an email in your inbox that says, here are the workshop details. Here is a link to sign up. You won't get in the room unless you've signed up. It's worth saying because we have to turn people away every year. Okay. We've spoken about what the conference is going to include. I want to go back to last year. Simon did something really cool that I've actually used quite a lot since you did it. You recorded every session on your phone and then uploaded the transcript of every session to Google's Notebook LM, which is, for people who don't know, it's basically like a study tool. I think it was designed for students you upload a corpus of text or videos or whatever, and you then ask it questions to basically study. So I've been asking it lots of questions over the last year since you did it. I asked it this morning, what were the main themes and lessons from last year's conference in Barcelona? We're going to go through some of them now and see if maybe these things will have changed in a year. Okay. The first of these, at the top of the answer that I got this morning, was about AI. And it said the consensus was that AI presents a significant opportunity for evolution rather than an immediate disruptive threat to established portals. Do we think that will have changed? Do you think the narrative there will have changed in a year, Simon?
No, I don't think the narrative has changed. It's not like if you think there's two ways it can change. Nothing happened. AI was just the iBuyer blip, right? Or B, it was a tsunami who came through, right? And we've all just been swept along with AI fundamentally changing everything. It's neither. I think we are going through an evolutionary phase at the moment. I think portals are understanding more and more about how to apply these technologies. I was doing some work for this conference I'm presenting at tomorrow, and I was looking at AI adoption in the real estate industry, and it's still only about 30, 40, 45%. So we've still got a long way to go. But you look at some of the headline numbers coming out of the US for the bigger companies, and the layoffs. I mean, let's talk about some of the blunt stuff here. Layoffs they've had because of AI replacing people in jobs. That is occurring. So I do think we are at this cusp where the evolution is becoming more evolutionary, maybe even partly revolutionary in everyone's and in both the adoption and the experience. And I think it's just taking its time to work into an industry where, as much as we like to think we're at the leading edge of everything that's happening in technology, we're not. The industry, because the other thing you got to remember is the market leaders are the market leaders. That it's very hard to dislodge them. So they're not massively motivated at adopting technology at 1,000,000 miles an hour. They're already generating 40, 50% EBITDA margins. They've got good pricing control. So I think the more evolutionary or revolutionary stuff you're seeing is coming in at the small business end. And I've seen some really cool stuff coming out of like Model Prop, where they're just the conversations that are occurring between a human and a machine to find property or book meetings and whatever is outstandingly simple. And if I'm a real estate agent, I'd be adopting that technology tomorrow. Right? Why do I need to have a receptionist? So I think the answer is evolutionary, not revolutionary, but the best is to come.
Okay, the second point was, and this is one, I guess, close to what I've been doing, smarter search, moving beyond traditional filters to natural language search, voice search, and image-based search. However, some implementations are still in the early stages and not working perfectly. I don't think I'm giving anything away by saying that the headline graph from that report I put out yesterday was that only 1% of real estate portals around the world have adopted true AI-powered natural language search. That's 1%. So I'd say, yes, we are very much at the beginning of it. I don't think that narrative has moved on. I think there is, just looking at LinkedIn today, there's a debate going on a post that I put out yesterday about this. It's not moved on. We're still very much in this thinking of things aren't moving very quickly. We're waiting to see what consumers do. I actually saw some very good research yesterday about younger consumers on property portals. I'm not going to reveal too much because we're hoping that the author of that particular thing will publish for us. But yeah, I don't think that narrative has moved on. Here's one for
Ed,
you.
could I
Yeah,
put
go on.
a counter argument to just a very brief one, which is that maybe smarter search, no, but smarter engagement, yes. I think we're seeing, particularly, I know we're name dropping PropTechs again, but what they're doing with virtual staging, Zillow's adding virtual staging. I think in terms of keeping people on listings, I think we are seeing an acceleration there. I'm not tied to that, but I think it's worth putting out there very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a good point.
And we also saw GT got the REA Group investing into them.
Absolutely.
Now clearly investing into GT is not because you're going to take on Rightmove. It's not like, oh, we failed to buy Rightmove, so we'll invest into GT. There's a couple of others in between that you'd probably have a conversation with beforehand. But I think what it's more about is by investing into them, I get to see how people are engaging with this free-form search. What do you want to call it? Text-based search, conversational search. And GT's not even conversational. I mean, we have to think search. There's like fielded search. There's free-form search where I just say, and I was playing with their site the other day. I'm looking for a castle-like house in the United Kingdom, £2 million within 1 hour's train of London or something, right? But that's not conversational search. Conversational search is where I'm engaged to actually find something. Hey, Simon, what are you looking for? I'm looking for this. Well, why are you doing that? Okay, well, what's important to you? How much money you've got saved? What's the equity in your current? It literally works with me in a more engaging frame. And I think what REA is doing there, and that's why I think this is important, is yes, it's 1% at the moment, but we also know it's not going to go back to zero. It's more likely to go from one, okay, might go to two, might have 100% growth, okay, but it's going to move in that direction. I think conversational based search, which is related to AI, becomes more important as people get more and more comfortable with the chat GPTs, the perplexities of the world for their day-to-day interactions.
Okay. Thank you, Simon. I think we've mentioned everything that we had to mention. Apart from maybe thank you to the sponsors. As always, we have genuine, we obviously say this because we would say this, the most relevant sponsors that you could possibly ask for this conference. We like to make sure that they are relevant. Simon, I'm sure people are interested periodically in becoming sponsors, and you kind of have to filter a little bit and whatever. We love our sponsors. They're very relevant. They've all got things that we know are useful for the industry. We thank you to all of them. There's 12 of them. I'm not going to name them all. But yeah, that's the only thing left to tick off the thing that's in front of me here. For those of you who have tickets, we will see you I'm not going to say how long, but we'll see you on the 15th. For anybody who hasn't got a ticket, who wants to get a ticket, again, we are close to selling this out as we record this, so you better hurry. I'll see you two in person very shortly. Thank you very much for your time. And